My name is Brad Nahrstadt, and I am going to talk to you today about being an empathetic leader. There was an article that was recently published in Forbes magazine. I think it was September 19th of last year, 2021. And the whole gist of the article was that empathy is the most important leadership skill. And they collected a bunch of research that's been done over the last several years, looking at what are the key attributes of an effective leader. And the number one skill, the number one quality of an effective leader was empathy. So what does that mean? What does it mean to be an empathetic leader? Empathetic leadership, I think, means that you have the ability to understand the needs of others and being aware of their feelings and thoughts. And where this comes into play is by understanding how someone else feels, you can then understand how it impacts their perception, how it impacts their perception of other people, how it impacts their perception of other activities, and how it really drives their motivation. Now, here's something important to remember. Empathy is not sympathy. Sympathy is something completely different. Somebody loses a pet. You say, oh, I feel sorry for them. Or they didn't get a job that they were really set on obtaining. You say, well, I feel bad that they didn't get that job. That's sympathy. Sympathy is not the same thing as empathy. Empathy is more understanding how someone else feels and how that affects what they do. So what are the characteristics of an empathetic leader? I think that there's a handful, and I'll talk to you a little bit about each one and why I think that it's important. I think the number one characteristic, and if you do any kind of research on empathy, being an empathetic leader, empathetic leadership styles, the number one thing that's discussed is an empathetic leader listens. I think that today, given the way we operate, the fact that, everybody has a cell phone, everybody's texting or instant messaging, and they want an instant reply. And as soon as they get a reply, they give an instant response back. To me, what that has done is we have become a culture of individuals who listen to respond, not to understand. So we listen, and when we're listening, we're immediately thinking about how are we going to respond? What are we going to say in response to what we just heard? Instead of actually taking the time to listen and understand what it is the person is actually saying. So here's what I would suggest when it comes to listening. You have to focus completely on the individual who's doing the talking. You need to actively listen. That means listen to what they say and process what they're saying. Understand what it is that they're trying to communicate. You need to eliminate distractions. So have a conversation one-on-one with somebody. I am a big believer in it's always better to talk to someone face-to-face. The next best thing would be to speak to them on the phone. I am not a fan of texting, of instant messaging. You just don't pick up cues. You don't sometimes understand what the person is saying. You can't read emotion in a text message or an instant message. So I'm a big fan of actually sitting down and talking to somebody one-on-one and listening to what the person has to say. Pay attention, not only to their verbal cues, but their nonverbal cues. How do they look? How are they acting? Are they sitting there, with their arms crossed across their chest? They're not looking at you. They're not paying attention. You can tell, is someone sad? Are they anxious? Are they excited? You need to pay attention to those cues. I think that you need to spend twice as much time listening as talking. if you're actively listening to somebody, you will not be doing a lot of talking. You might throw in a prompt every once in a while in order to get more information out of somebody, in order to have them expand on their story, to tell you more. But for the most part, you should be listening, not talking. And part of active listening is listening to what the person has to say, and then identifying those instances in which you should be asking follow-up questions. Maybe they haven't said quite enough, so you need to ask the follow-up question in order to make sure that you understand what it is they're saying. Second characteristic of an empathetic leader. An empathetic leader takes a genuine interest in the lives of the individuals that they deal with. So if you are a boss, it's your employees. If you're an officer in the fraternity, it's the other members of the fraternity. And when I say take a genuine interest in your members, what I mean is really get to know them, right? What do they do? What are the activities that they're interested in? What are their hobbies? What do you know? What can you find out about their family members, their mom, their dad? Do they have any siblings? What are their interests? What are they interested in outside of the fraternity? What else do they take an interest in? What are their challenges? What are they challenged by? What are the things that cause them to lose sleep at night? Right? When you start to ask those kinds of questions, when you start to develop that kind of information about someone, you really get to know them. You know them not on a superficial level, but on a really personal level. So when I was in business, when I was practicing law, I was managing partner of a law firm for many years, and I would every Monday I would go around and I would talk to the people that worked at the firm, the staff, the junior lawyers, the associates, the partners, and find out what they'd done that weekend. Ask them what they had done. Have a conversation with them about personal issues. I would always ask about spouses, about significant others, about their kids, what their kids were doing. The kids had gone to college, how the kids were doing in school. And I kept a notebook, and I would write down information that I learned during these conversations so I could bring it up later. So I could work it into a conversation so they recognized I knew them, and I took an interest in them, took an interest in their family, and actually got to know them on a personal level. You also need to, I think, as an empathetic leader, you need to take a genuine interest in what your members feel and what they have to say, right? Ask them for feedback. Ask them what can we be doing differently? What can I, as a chaplain, do better? When they give you suggestions, assuming they're legitimate suggestions, not something completely off the wall, then act on them. Make sure that the key is don't just ask for information and then not use it, not act upon it, because then the people that have given the information, they feel like they're being ignored, that you're just paying lip service. Just say, well, tell me what you think, and then when you tell me what you think, I'm just going to ignore it and do what I want anyway, right? So you have to make sure that you act on the feedback. I'll give you an example. Again, when I was a managing partner, we had a lot of younger lawyers, and when I asked them, what could we do different? What can we do to make your work lives better? This was, by the way, pre-COVID. So this was back in the days before everybody worked from home, and lawyers essentially didn't work from home at all. And what they said was, we would like a work from home policy. We'd like to be able to work from home a couple of days a week. The older members of the firm who, grew up in the 70s and 80s and early 90s, they were dead set against it. That's ridiculous. You can't practice law from home. It's not something that we should allow them to do. They're going to take advantage of it. And I basically had to sell that I thought that this was a good idea, that it likely would increase productivity productivity, and it would make the people, certainly the younger members of our team, feel like they were appreciated. So we instituted a work from home policy, and we tracked the hours, and it turned out when they weren't commuting, and they weren't having to spend 35 minutes or 40 minutes or an hour getting to work, and then the same amount of time getting home from work, and they had some flexibility to do things during the day that they normally wouldn't. We actually saw that they actually worked longer hours, put in more billable time on the days that they were working from home. But that's a good example of actually asking for someone's feedback and then acting on the feedback, and it turned out to be a win-win for everybody. Here's another thing you need to do as an empathetic leader. You need to share your information with the members of your chapter. So don't just find out about them, share with them what you're interested in, what your experiences have been, the obstacles that you're facing, the challenges that you're facing. Share with them your ideas. So the thing to remember, empathy is a two-way street, right? You want to be empathetic with your members. You want them to be empathetic with you. You want to share with them your information about the things that you find important, the things that you find interesting, what you want to accomplish in your time in the chapter. An empathetic leader sets an example. I am, again, a firm believer. I would never ask somebody that I was leading to do something I would not do myself. You have to be willing to roll up your sleeves and do anything that you would ask somebody else to do. And an empathetic leader lends a hand. An empathetic leader will figure out, what do I need to do to remove any roadblocks that may stand in the way of my people, my members, my brothers doing what they need to get done? What kind of support do I need to provide? What kind of resources do I need to provide in order to allow them to be successful? So remember, you need to make sure that you not only are willing to do anything that you would ask them to do, but that you lend a hand. So why does it matter? Why does it matter? Why should you care about being an empathetic leader? I think it matters for a number of reasons. First of all, empathy allows those people who are reporting to you, who are working with you, and remember, this is a skill that will not only serve you well while you are an undergraduate and serving as a leader in your chapter, but when you get out into the workforce and you have a leadership position in a company, and you're a boss, it will certainly help you when you're managing people. It allows you, empathy allows those under you to feel safe with their failures. They can make a mistake, and they know that they won't simply be blamed for the mistake. That as an empathetic leader, you will seek to understand why something happened and put processes in place to make sure that it doesn't happen again. So empathy encourages you as a leader to do that, to understand the root cause of poor performance and try and figure out how you can help the people under you perform better. Being an empathetic leader allows you to help struggling members improve and excel. If you understand what they're feeling, if you understand where they're coming from, if you understand their motivation, you can help them improve and you can help them excel. And probably the most important thing is empathy allows you to build and develop relationships. And that's really what it's all about. It's developing relationships, establishing strong relationships with people so that you can work together as a team to get things done. Here's the last thing I'll leave you guys with. I had a quote on my bulletin board at work and it followed me wherever I went. Whenever I went to a new position, I took this quote with me, and I put it up on the new bulletin board, and I kept it because to me it really encapsulates the importance of being an empathetic leader. And it's a quote from Theodore Roosevelt. Theodore Roosevelt said, "Nobody cares how much you know until they know how much you care." So I would encourage you, brothers, to develop your skills as an empathetic leader. Really understand what it means to have empathy, and how you can use empathy to get the most out of the people in your chapter. And then ultimately, when you graduate and you enter the workforce, to get the most out of the people who are ultimately going to wind up working for you. Well, I hope that you guys have a great rest of your session, and I hope you can develop the skills that we've talked about here tonight, and really start to embrace the importance of being an empathetic leader.